Appendix 1. Supernatural phenomena recorded in the Scriptures. Following a list of occasions recorded in the Pali Canon in which the Buddha displayed psychic powers, subduing Uru Vela Kassapa, the leader of the Matatera ascetics, subduing Baka Brahma, subduing another Brahma, correcting the wrong views of Sunakata and refuting the claims of the naked ascetic Patikaputta, subduing the bandit Angulimala, inspiring awe in a group of monks so that they would come to receive teachings, permitting only certain people to see the marks of a great man, extending loving kindness and taming the fierce elephant Nalagiri, and confronting the Yaka Alawaka. Occasions recorded in the commentaries include the twin miracles and refuting the claims of heretical teachers. Taking 500 monks to admire the Himalayas in order to dispel their thoughts of former lovers. Here is a list of occasions recorded in the Pali Canon in which disciples of the Buddha displayed psychic powers. Venerable Pindola Bharadwaja taking up the challenge to rise in the air and bring down a sandalwood bowl from a high pole. Venerable Mahamoggallana subduing Mara. Venerable Pilinda Vacha rescuing two kidnapped daughters belonging to his lay supporters. Venerable Pilinda Vacha turning King Bimbisara's palace into gold to vindicate a falsely accused family. Venerable Dabba Malaputta using his finger as a lamp to shine the way when taking monks to their dwellings at night. Venerable Sagata displaying powers to the laity. Venerable Sagata subduing the Naga divine serpent in the hermitage of the Matatera ascetics. Venerable Devadatta inspiring Prince Ajasattu. Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Mahamoggallana redeeming Venerable Devadatta's disciples by using psychic powers and mind reading combined with the miracle of instruction. Venerable Mahaka causing a cool wind to blow along with gentle rain to assist the senior monks who were overcome by heat. Venerable Mahamoggallana using the Vajjayanta palace to shake in order to stir up a sense of urgency in Indra, king of the gods. Venerable Mahamoggallana causing the mansion of Megara's mother to shake in order to caution arrogant monks. Venerable Abhibu, chief disciple of the Buddha Sikhi, teaching the Dhamma while remaining invisible and making his voice heard through the thousand-fold world system. Occasions recorded in the commentaries are numerous, including Venerable Kula Pataka creating 1,000 mind-produced images of himself, Venerable Mahamoggallana subduing the Naga king, Nando Pananda, Venerable Punna saving his brother, the naval merchant from destruction by angry spirits, the novice Sankita saving 30 monks by volunteering to be sacrificed by bandits, the novice Sumana subduing a Naga, and Venerable Sundara Samudra fleeing through the air to escape a courtesan. There are canonical stories of other individuals performing psychic feats. For example, Brahmas with right view subduing Brahmas with wrong view, the Rishi Sohitasa crossing the entire ocean in one stride, and Indra taking upon the likeness of a weaver in order to offer alms food to Venerable Mahakassapa. There are many such stories in the commentaries, mostly involving devas, yakas, Vidyadhara, a form of celestial being, and ascetics. Indra plays an important role in these stories, especially in the Jataka tales, occasionally disguising himself and often assisting or testing virtuous people. Some of the canonical references to psychic powers are general. For example, psychic powers are one cause for earthquakes. The use of psychic powers is one way to demonstrate the significance of mental volitional actions. A person with psychic powers can see a log of wood as being earth or water, and a person who is governed by public opinion hastens to practice the Dhamma, fearing that ascetics, brahmas, and devas with psychic powers may read his mind. Appendix 2. Assistance and provocation by Indra. Indra's assistance does not stem entirely from his own sense of goodness, but appears also to be his duty, because in many instances his throne heats up as a warning, and thus forces him to act. This matter of Indra's throne heating up demonstrates a transition from earlier pre-Buddhist ideas of people pressuring the gods through the undertaking of religious austerities to the Buddhist principle of effectuating change through the power of virtue. In this period of transition, Indra is still influenced by coercion through ascetic practices. In the scriptural stories describing the way of coercion, Indra's conduct is that of competition and vying for power. For example, his attempts to disturb the ascetic practices of people, which obviously does not accord with the Buddhist way of practice. There are, however, many stories in which Indra's conduct accords to various degrees with the Buddhist way of practice. Furthermore, as depicted in these Jataka tales, Indra does not offer assistance easily. Most often he begins by testing people to see whether they are truly virtuous and upright. The Mahajanaka Jataka in particular describes the Buddhist way of practice. This story recounts how, when a ship broke apart in the middle of the ocean, almost all of the passengers cried out in fear and petitioned the gods for help. The Bodhisattva alone did not cry out or beg for help from the devas. Instead, he used sound judgment and made maximum effort to escape the danger. In the end, Mani Mekhala, the guardian deva of the ocean, offered assistance by her own initiative in keeping with the deva's responsibility. Besides checking up on people himself, Indra also has an entourage of guardian spirits who help to inspect and report back on people's behavior. Appendix 3. Asservations of truth, a viable solution for people dependent on supernatural powers. A practical solution for those at beginning stages of spiritual development. Those who are still fascinated by or dependent on supernatural powers is to apply the traditional Buddhist method of an asseveration of truth, satchakiriya. This involves invoking the truth or referring to the truth as a governing power, to direct attention to the goodness one has previously performed and accumulated, or to simply reflect on the truth of one's present state of being, and then to apply the truth as a power for dispelling danger. When all other avenues for addressing the danger are exhausted, this method of practice is considered to be close to a truly Buddhist way of practice. It does not undermine the making of effort and it is not an entreaty to an external creative power. On the contrary, this practice increases confidence in one's own virtue and effort, and it leads to greater strength of heart. Moreover, one does not need to get mixed up with sacred objects or sacred ceremonies, which lead to complication and complexity. The Buddhist commentaries, especially the Jataka tales, contain many stories involving an asseveration of truth. Many of these stories verge on the fantastic, but this is normal for literary texts. For example, verifying the true parents of a child, turning reeds hollow so that a tribe of monkeys can drink safely, a baby bird wishing to escape a forest fire, helping to win at dice, healing a child from who was bitten by a snake, saving a boat from angry seas, releasing birds from captivity, after sacrificing an eye, having the eye grow back, saving a prince who will be sacrificed in place of his father, a wife citing her faithfulness, and thus healing her husband from leprosy, a queen asking for a son, escaping from imprisonment after being falsely accused, curing a son after he was struck by a poisoned arrow, saving a royal husband who is about to be sacrificed, a courtesan making the river Ganges flow backwards, King Asoka asking for a branch from the great Bodhi tree without needing to cut it, escaping from the punishment of being crushed by an elephant after being falsely accused of theft, a child remembering his mother's devotion and honesty in order to escape from a stampeding buffalo, Venerable Angulimala wishing for the well-being of a woman who is about to give birth, King Mahakapinna crossing a river on horseback, a queen crossing a river on horseback, using flowers as an augury and sending forth an invitation to the Buddha, curing a child who was bitten by a poisonous snake, curing a husband from illness, and divining whether beings who are truly worthy of offerings exist or not. The practice of making asseverations of truth is a measuring stick for the stability of ethical conduct in society. A decrease in this tradition of asseverations of truth may point to a decline in social ethics, because when people lack virtue giving rise to self-confidence, they are likely to revert back to a dependence on and supplication to supernatural phenomena like divine powers. It is probably because of such a weakness in ethical conduct that we see the persistence and prevalence of primitive forms of religious practice today. For example, the making of proprietary offerings, supplications, curses, and spells. Appendix 4. Was the Buddha human or divine? When followed and correctly understood, the Buddhist guidelines concerning divine beings enables Buddhists to live harmoniously with those people who still worship divinities, while at the same time they enable Buddhists to safeguard their own principles. Some people raise the objection that such an open-minded stance puts Buddhism at a disadvantage, because people generally lack self-confidence and are disinclined to use their critical faculties, and for this reason they are easily converted to a religious teaching or supplication to divine powers. This may indeed be a weak point requiring consideration, but problems are more likely to stem from whether people have followed the Buddha's guidelines and continue to improve their understanding of them or not. Because people are easily led astray, it is even more important that Buddhists are careful to protect and maintain their principles. It is acceptable for Buddhist laypeople to join the veneration, but not entreaty, of divine beings, but they should not bestow on these divine beings a power that is greater than the human potential which each person possesses. However elevated a divine being may be, it is the ideal of human being, the teacher of devas and human beings, who is supreme. If one feels uneasy with the thought that the divinity that one has previously worshipped would venerate a human being, one can look at the Buddha from a different perspective, as someone who has developed himself to the highest degree and transcended the state of being either a god or a human. As born out of the following story from the Pali Canon. This passage contains a play on words. I have retained the idiomatic expressions for the reader to consider. At one time, while the Buddha was on a journey travelling alone, a Brahma who was travelling on the same road was amazed when he saw the symbol of a wheel set within the Buddha's footprints. The Brahma followed the footprints and saw the Buddha sitting peacefully at the foot of a tree by the side of the road. He went up to him and asked, "Shall your reverence be a deva?" The Buddha replied, "No, Brahman, I shall not be a deva." "Then your reverence shall be a Gandhava." "No, I shall not be a Gandhava." "Then shall your reverence be a Yaka?" "No, Brahman, I shall not be a Yaka." "Then shall your reverence be a human being?" "No, Brahman, I shall not be a human being." Now when I asked whether your reverence shall be a deva, or a Gandhava, or a Yaka, or a human being, he replied, "I shall not." "What then shall your reverence be?" "Brahman, those taints whereby, if they were not abandoned, I may become a deva, a Gandhava, a Yaka, or a human being. These taints are abandoned by me, cut off at the root, destroyed, so that they are no more subject to arise in the future. Just as Brahman, a blue, red, or white lotus, though born and grown in the water, rises up and stands unsoiled by the water, so Brahman, though born and grown in the world, I have transcended the world and dwell unsoiled by the world. Consider me, O Brahman, a Buddha. Appendix 5. Divine Higher Knowledge and Vision. The Anguttara Nikaya states that the Buddha could declare having realized the unsurpassed supreme enlightenment when he had perfected the eightfold series of higher knowledge and vision of the Devas, Adi Deva Nana Dasana. 1. To perceive the Devas' auras. 2. To see the Devas' forms. 3. To converse with the Devas. 2. To know to which group the Devas belong. 5. To know that the Devas pass away from here and are reborn there according to the fruits of karma. 6. To know the Devas' nourishment and to know their experiences. 7. To know the Deva's lifespan, and 8. To know whether he had formerly dwelt among these Devas. Adi Devanana Dasana may also be translated as knowledge and vision of one who surpasses the Devas, or knowledge and vision leading to one to surpass the Devas, because it leads a person to know the Devas better than the Devas know themselves. Example, Brahma does not know his own age and mistakenly believes he is immortal. Adi Deva Nana Dasana is a facet of the divine eye and is a necessary characteristic of the perfectly enlightened Buddha, along with other powers and knowledge of the Tathagata. Tathagata Gata Balana Tathagata Balanana. But it is not necessary for the attainment of arahantship. From the ancient times, even before the time of the Buddha, people have had a deep-seated respect for divine beings. To show the distinction of human beings, it was therefore necessary to show how humans can surpass the Devas. Appendix 6. Offering to Devas. Offering to Devas, Devata Bali, are one of the 5 kinds of righteous offerings that the Buddha recommended for lay people. The other 4 are aid for relatives, Nati Bali, welcome gifts for guests, Titi Bali, the making of merit in honor of the departed, Puba Peta Bali, and support of the crown, example. The payment of taxes, Raja Bali. Bali is one of only few words originally used in Brahmanism that the Buddha adopted, i.e. that were accepted into the Buddhist teachings, without having its meaning changed. In this case, the meaning changed only slightly. There are other words like Yana and Tapa which were used, but their meanings were changed considerably. This is because Bali originally has had the meaning of offering sacrifice as a form of assistance or support, as well as respect. In Brahmanism, these offerings Bali were made to devas, spirits, human beings, and even to birds and other animals. The offerings consisted of rice, buttermilk, flowers, scented oil, incense, sandalwood, betel, spices, etc. There is a passage in the Ratana Sutta urging the devas to cultivate loving kindness towards and protect those people who make offerings. The commentaries explain that the sharing of merit, patidana, to have other beings take part in the act of goodness, is one Buddhist definition for Bali, and the fact that the canon advocates this form of offering demonstrates how people assist the devas. The devas who receive these offerings should have gratitude and protect people in return.